Boy, that phrase, a strait betwixt two, I've pondered that many times. All of us have been in the strait betwixt two at some time in our life. There's one, to some this may not be the best illustration, but it is to me. When I was just out of college at the University of Tennessee, I traveled for the headquarters of my college social fraternity. And one of the things I did, I went around and visited the chapters at various universities. And I remember that I was visiting at the University of Louisiana at New Orleans, not the main LSU campus we think of, but they had a small fraternity house. It was in a residential type home and all. And one of the things I had to do when I would do that job was meet with alumni. That's called a house corporation. We go over some very basic things. It wasn't that meeting that would make a lot of difference, but you did it. But the night that I was to meet with them, some of the guys in the fraternity chapter came to me and said, "Hey, we got you a ticket to see the New Orleans Jazz play basketball tonight." Now, Pistol Pete Maravich, and some don't know of him, but look it up on the internet. Pistol Pete Maravich had come with the New Orleans Jazz. They'd won all their games early in the season, and I'd get my third chance to see him play. I saw him play when I was in high school, and our high school team went to Ole Miss to see it. I saw him play my sophomore year at the University of Tennessee, and I mean, he was the high-scoring player ever in the NCAA history, just a great player. And I was going to get to go see him play at the new Louisiana Superdome. You'd had the Astrodome in Houston that I had a chance to see, but man, that one in Louisiana that's why they call it the Superdome. It was even better than the Astrodome. Well, I was in a strait betwixt two, because that game was at the same time I was supposed to meet with those men, those alumni at the fraternity house. Oh, I wanted to say, tell them I just wouldn't be able to make it, but you see, that was part of my job. That's something I have to do wherever I go. If, I had a chance to go to a ball game or something on one of those campuses, and I did a lot, I could do it, but I had to turn that down. Now, that night, that meeting, it was good. They were nice men, and we had a pretty good time. And I kind of vaguely remember sitting around the table with them, but I don't remember any specifics about that meeting. But you know what happened when the guys in the fraternity got back? They said, Pistol Pete scored. He probably scored 40 points or more. The New Orleans Jazz won, and the largest crowd ever up to that point in NBA history was at that game. Well, I remember that specifically, but I was in a strait betwixt two. Paul was in a strait betwixt two. He said to live is Christ, but to die is gain. Paul was a winner either way, but his strait betwixt two, he was really at this point in his life, he had suffered more for the cause of Christ than probably any human. Christ suffered so much, no one suffered like him on the way to Calvary. But he had suffered so much. He'd been beaten. He'd been shipwrecked. He'd gone without food. He, just had to face all sorts of things. He was ready to go to heaven. But he said, I'm in a strait betwixt two.